Brad, we did it.
What did we do?
Well, a couple weeks ago, we came out and we were like, it's stupid Microsoft recall. And you know who agrees with us now?
Who's that?
Microsoft.
That's right. TechPod activism has scored its first victory.
I mean, in fairness, when we were doing that show, I was like, do I have to say, hey, it would be really stupid to save this in an unencrypted database? Say recall for people who don't remember. It's the feature that takes the screenshot of everything on your computer, including passwords and financial data and stuff like that, and then dumps it in a database where it's machine imaged and recognized to know what is on each screenshot, and then it's searchable, which seems like kind of an interesting idea, not something I'm going to turn on. But the privacy people were like, oh, it's really bad if somebody gets a hold of your computer, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, the computer's hard drive is encrypted with BitLocker, presumably because that's on by default on machines that this is on by default on. Shouldn't be that big a deal unless they did something dopey, like save it in unencrypted in user space where every application that's running on the computer can have access to it. And we didn't even talk about malicious users who have access to your computer, like domestic violence situations, which that's on me. I always forget to think about stuff from that context. Anyway, apparently nobody at Microsoft had thought about any of this stuff either, because on a June 13th update to a blog post, I'm reading a PCWorld.com story here. On a June 13th update to a blog post Microsoft originally published on June 7th, they announced that Recall will now be released as a preview to the Insider program in the coming weeks. This is 4 days before the Copilot Plus PCs using the Qualcomm Snapdragon 10 or X Elite start shipping. So they're pulling this at, I would describe this as, I think it's safe to say this is the last minute.
It will not be in at launch, is what you're saying.
Not in at launch now. It was going to be like a shipping beta for everyone, and now it's not in it at launch. Yeah, they're saying that now they'll turn off Recall by default. It will require Windows Hello to use Recall, and will in the future use just-in-time encryption and decryption to secure the stored data further. But yeah, they're going to need more time to add that stuff.
Yes, and decrypting on the fly at the last possible minute seems like the only way that could possibly be acceptable.
I mean, they're still going to index all the information that's in those. Presumably, I think the way it worked was it looks at the picture at the screenshots. It does a image pass on the screenshot. It's supposed to do this all locally on the NPU, which is this 40 TOPS processor inside the Lunar Lake or Snapdragon, or I can't remember what the AMD one is. The AM5 stuff, I guess.
What is the T in TOPS?
Tera.
Okay. Well, okay. What it feels like there's a missing unit type in there. Tera, what operations per second?
Trillions.
Well, that's trillions. That's trillions. But what kind though? Flops is floating point operations, for example.
This is just a lot of them.
Is a lot of some kind of
tensor, I think, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, well, that's an NVIDIA term. Not to split hairs here, but
Google uses that too, right? Google uses tensor too.
Maybe so. Or TensorFlow is a thing. Yeah, I guess that is a generic AI term, but NVIDIA has quote unquote tensor cores, on their GPUs, but I guess you're right. That is a generic AI thing. Anyway, it is.
According to dictionary.com, TOPS just means it's ranked among the highest as in ability, performance, comprehensiveness, or quality.
Oh, good. Now I know what that means.
As in his work is TOPS. That car is TOPS. Then there's more about other things that I'm not going to read on the podcast because there might be kids listening.
Is it matrix multiplication? Is matrix math operations? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Matters to me.
I mean, it does matter, but look, here's the thing that Microsoft told us all. You need 40 of them. Mm-hmm. More is better, but you don't need 300. You just need 40 or 50.
I saw some benchmarks are starting to circulate for the Snapdragon 10 Elite. I don't know if you've seen.
It's just X. It's not 10.
Is it X?
Yeah, 10 is the website or the operating system from Apple, not the Snapdragon Elite.
Okay. I saw some gaming benchmarks going around, specifically comparing to Meteor Lake, the last year's laptop part from Intel.
Well, they've tested 12. I think at Computex, they said they tested 1,200, as many as 1,200 games tested.
It was keeping pace with Meteor Lake. I would not say a lot of profound wins on that front, and people seemed shocked by that. And I mean,
we talked about this on the PC World podcast last week. It's the problem that they have. Everybody's looking at this and thinking, oh, it's going to be like Apple, where all of a sudden everybody's suddenly magically making ARM versions of their executables. And it's not going to happen because Apple had the benefit of saying, hey, we're not going to sell any of the old Macs anymore. And everybody buys new Macs every 5 years. So you knew that you had to, if you wanted to keep selling software to your customers, you had to, get on the train. And the Windows isn't going to be like that.
Yeah,
Windows,
of course,
people will be running a fucking Sandy Lake from 10 years ago in 15 years still.
Obviously, there is no ARM version of Counter-Strike yet. Like, there's obviously some overhead with the instruction translation or whatever, but still, people seem very shocked that the bigger point is I got the sense people have maybe built this chip up in their minds a little too much as a profound next big thing in the Windows space.
So to give some context, Gordon and I over at PC World talked over all of the Computex keynotes last week, starting with NVIDIA, which was just talking about big AI iron. Basically, it was just it was fine. The big one that we had 12 to 1,500 people watching all of those keynotes on the PC World channel, and then when we got to Qualcomm on Sunday night, it went down to 400.
Really?
Yeah. So I think the enthusiast crowd probably knows what's up. Here's the thing. Qualcomm is saying they want to have 50% of the PC market share in 5 years by 2030, I think, which seems aggressive.
Yes.
But if they actually have SoCs to push down into $200 laptops, because all of these are launching at around $1,000, it's that's not out of the question.
No, maybe. And I can say from experience, having had an M1 MacBook for a couple of years, battery life sells hard. That is the killer feature, more than performance, more than anything else. It's the fact that you can open that thing up in the morning, use it all day, the fan never kicks on, and then at the end of the day, you've still got 60% battery or better.
Yeah, my wife uses her laptop all around the house. There's one place that there's a plug, and she just plugs it in maybe twice a week, once or twice a week.
Yes.
I think that's the thing that people are excited about is that there's finally something to kind of push ARM on Windows that actually seems like it might not suck. It all depends on how Prism is, and they still haven't those benchmarks are the first benchmarks we've seen about Prism. They didn't tout any performance numbers in any of the stuff. I think for this category, I don't think games matter as much as productivity stuff.
No, it's just the only it's just the only metric I have managed to find so far.
Yeah, the big surprise for me out of all of the Computex stuff, not to completely tangentize this tangent of a tangent, is the PC OEMs were treating Copilot Plus as if it was the second coming of Centrino. I think Intel even mentioned Centrino when they were talking about it. Centrino for the olds is when Intel was like, hey, we're going to put Wi-Fi on the chipset for your laptop. And then they did a whole bunch of ads that were like, hey, here's a you like the internet, right? What if you could use the internet from your couch in your living room while you're watching TV? And then they basically destroyed all of human culture after that point.
Right.
But they sold a boatload of laptops, an insane number of laptops.
Well, hey, any amount of damage is acceptable as long as the number goes up.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Bot. I'm Will.
I am Brad. Hello. That was the shortest cold open to show in history. You waited looking at mine.
It was 5 seconds, maybe.
Not even 5 seconds from ending that cold open to saying welcome.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, though. They sold that was when PCs went from being a thing that you put on your desktop to a laptop for most people, right? Sure. That Centrino bump. And that's what the OEMs think is going to happen. It's a big, I'm breaking all sorts of rules here because we're carrying over the cold open conversation into the main episode. Anyway. What
was the time frame for Centrino? I'm looking it up.
2002, 2003.
2003, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it was around the time when battery life was getting to the point that laptops would run for a few hours rather than an hour. And the screens were okay. LCDs were getting good. It was an actual moment. And they were doing Super Bowl ads where it was hey, look at me, I'm watching the Super Bowl and I have my stats open at the same time. And it was a big deal.
Yeah. We were rolling up on that. What was it? 2006, probably, when the first plastic MacBooks came out. The ones right before the first aluminum unibody.
The aluminum unibody was later than that. I was still at MacBook 2008 or 2009.
Yeah, because I bought one when I started at Giant Bomb and they had just come out, and I was extremely excited to have my first laptop. But Brian had one of the white plastic MacBooks before that.
Yeah.
And I remember that was the first laptop I looked at and was like, oh my God, that looks awesome. Finally, that looks like something I would actually spend money on.
Yeah, there was a I want to say when I started at Giant Bomb, my desktop, I had a desktop that I think I built or brought or something. I can't remember. And I used a laptop as my main computer there. It was the first time that had ever happened because I'd always had desktops before then. That was in 2010.
Yep.
Brad, today, speaking of white plastic MacBooks.
Yeah. Speaking of more and more functionality being condensed into smaller and smaller devices.
Yeah, this is last week was WWDC, the Worldwide Developer Conference for Apple, which is, I think, like the keynote for that is the most dense. Hey, here's what we're doing and here's what we think about what we should be doing that they give all year. The rest of their keynotes are about selling something, and this is about selling them, like their software. So I think it's worth delving into even for people who aren't Android people, aren't Apple people. This was an interesting one because like on the heels of Computex, where everybody was talking about AI, and then like NVIDIA's stock went up and they became a $3 trillion company and, yada, yada, fortunes were made, all this stuff. It was interesting because they didn't, like it coming out of Computex, I thought, in order to have a communication with shareholders that works out for these big tech companies, this is the year that everybody's going to explain their AI strategy, right? And on the hardware side, it's just like, hey, we got tops. On the software side, it's Microsoft is like, hey, you're going to be able to do all this stuff with AI, and then they don't show you anything you can do with AI that any normal human being's ever going to want to do. Or alternately, they show something that's super highly specific, that's like a specialist task, like, checking radiology images for tumors or machine robotic vision stuff or whatever. All that stuff's cool. I'm okay with that stuff. The generating images to send to your mom a Mother's Day card, like if Father's Day is coming up, and I would much rather have my daughter and wife draw some shit with crayons than go to Midjourney and generate a card for me.
But what if your phone could generate something from something they drew with crayons?
Okay, that sounds a little bit better, I guess. I don't anyway. It seems like they've spent a lot of time thinking about, hey, here's what the AI demos are.
Yeah.
That normal people are going to actually want, because it seems like they still employ people at Apple that are like use computers like normal human beings.
Sure. As
opposed to like I don't think we didn't talk about it really because it was terrible, but the Google keynote from their developer conference a couple weeks from Google I/O, their AI examples were like, do any normal people still work at this place? This is all weird shit. Anyway. So yeah, they started, as they often do at WWDC, with a really cringy segment in an airplane.
They skydove.
It kind of reminded me of that Google Glass keynote that we talked about a few months ago when they had the esports, the action sports people jump out of the airplane. It's
exactly that, except fake.
Yeah, except for they faked it.
Shout out to sorry, it's not Dr. Feelgood, it's Kickstart My Heart.
Oh.
We were talking about this before the show. The pilot, as they were about to skydive, puts on a Motley Crue song.
That's on Phil Schiller, just to be clear.
What's that?
The pilot was Phil Schiller.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, who's, I believe, a pilot in real life, is the joke.
I would believe that. But I referred to it to you before we started as a retro iPod, and then I felt weird about that.
It's the first iPod.
Well, yes, but also like we were adults when that came out, like we were like professionally doing this stuff when that came out, and now thinking of it as retro is very strange.
Look at my hairline; it was definitely retro.
Yes. Very good production values. If anybody on Earth has the money to throw at making a dumb bit look really nice in their presentation, it is Apple.
It's maybe the most expensive dad joke I've ever seen.
Sure, yeah.
The fact that they had all the presenters like parachuting out of this, except for Tim, parachuting out of this plane.
he was already standing on the roof.
Yeah. Craig Federighi's bicycle helmet / skydiving helmet that they clearly built on one of their home CNC machines in there was pretty good. It was a very silly bit. I didn't
even think. I mean, of course, Apple has unbelievable amounts of expensive rapid prototyping hardware, but I never really thought about how freeing that would be.
Somebody has to,
just to be able to just make something like a helmet to spec whenever you need it as a prop.
Go sculpt me a fancy hair helmet for a one-off joke with a glint on. At least they didn't do the glint on the teeth when he smiled and winked at the camera.
Sure. Well, it's like it's one thing though to be able to like to work on like iteratively work on like better and better chamfering on your phone housing, but to be able to just go make a thing like a helmet.
Like think about the room they have the lab, and then they have a warehouse full of blocks of styrofoam to carve shit out of.
Right. They just have untold amounts of raw materials.
Yeah. So then they actually talked about what's going on. There was the normal bit about how awesome we are as a company and how well things are going for us. They talked about, I'm going to go just in the interest of making this something if you want to scroll off through the videos to see pictures of, at the same time we're talking about it. I'm going to go in order they went, which is probably like, I get why they went in this order. It's probably not what I would have done, but hey, that's why I'm not in charge. They talked about Vision OS first. The people who use Apple Vision Pro a lot seemed generally underwhelmed that they called this Vision OS 2 at about the 4-month mark since this thing came out, 5-month mark since this thing came out.
Sure. Well, let's say maybe they feel they need to like goose the excitement around this headset a little bit.
Yeah. The big feeling I got about this is that photos must really move hardware. There's a bunch of stuff about the enhancements to the way the spatial photos work.
Yeah, which I'm happy for people who are excited by stuff like that. I don't really get the appeal because it's all fake,
Well,
it's not recording any actual spatial data, right? I assume it's just carving up a 2D image, right?
No, so the phone will record actual spatial data because it has a depth camera. Yeah, the iPhones since like the 12 or 13 or something have had a depth camera on the back.
Okay, I guess I couldn't see that from the on-screen demo they gave necessarily, but I guess that okay, there is some value to if you're replicating like actual real world space. Yeah,
the depth effect is nice. It's like I don't know. It doesn't clearly the people who like they have data about the people who are using that are really like I watched when I would use Norm's. I watched some videos of his kids and it was cool. Like it felt more like you were watching a real thing. In the same way that it was super dystopian because we were sitting there with the headset on. We don't need to get into that. We've talked about that before, but they added new gestures that make it easier to open the home menu, check the time, stuff like that. You don't have to like stare up at the ceiling anymore like you used to. There's the big thing I think was the virtual display enhancement for Mac users, where if you look at your MacBook, you can just pop up a virtual display. You can open the display basically on your headset. The keyboard, like if you have a Mac keyboard now, it'll punch through the VR, so you see the physical object in your representation of the virtual world, which is good. Those two things work together to give you like an enormous virtual display. That's like they support ultra widescreen and huge. Like they were making it huge. It looked like it wrapped around your whole. It looked like a real neck killer the way they showed it in the video. But I think there's a way to do that it would be incredibly useful.
I think didn't they describe it as it's like having two 4K displays side by side in terms of real estate, which is quite a lot of screen. I'm curious why this is just now coming about. Are there like improvements in bandwidth they've hit or something? Like why couldn't they do this before? I guess my
guess is that they needed something to be in sync on OS 10 and or OS 11. Sorry, and
it's like 15 now, right?
Oh, right. They went back to numbering, right? So it's Mac OS. Sorry, right. They needed something to be in sync across both. So they were probably using something fairly straightforward, like a remote desktop or something. And now it's something we'll talk about more in the future. But they have a thing in Mac OS that lets you pull your iPhone into the desktop. And it seems like they've done something to make the latency go down on that. So I wonder if they had some fundamental work that they did to improve this technology, because it seems like for Vision Pro, there's uses for bringing your phone and your watch screen and stuff like that. And for the Mac, bringing your phone into the MacBook, bring your Mac into the Vision Pro. Like it seems like they've done some work. There's a train mode because it uses accelerometers and gyroscopes as well as SLAM to position yourself in the world. So when you're inside a closed environment, that the SLAM is registering no movement, but your gyroscopes and accelerometers are registering movement. You need a different algorithm to kind of counteract that differentiation. They had a plane mode before. Now you have a train mode too. Don't use this on the subway because you'll get mugged, please. And And then there's an AirPlay receiver, so you can AirPlay stuff from phones or iPads or other devices into the Apple Vision Pro, which seems good.
That all sounds nice, but nothing moving the needle exactly. Like I see people hand wringing a bit about the relative success or failure of that device to date.
So I think this is still the normal loop. I think if you look at when the iPad came out, it came out in like March. They did the second version of the iPad OS, but it was just a 0.2 or something that fall. This feels like that. I don't think there's anything. I think next year is the year that you see the crazy stuff. They did talk about having app adoption, having like 2,000 apps. So they have basically one app for every person who's using one of those every day now.
Sure.
Yeah, look, I think that there's a world. If I was a primary Mac person and I was sitting if I was sitting in our whiskey basement where there was a bazillion people around, we didn't have a bunch of big monitors, there wasn't room for a bunch of big monitors, I could see using something like that.
Yeah. Ryan would have mocked you mercilessly.
I think Ryan would have just walked up and punched me in the back of the head every time I had it on, probably. But anyway, so that's Vision OS. I don't think we need to spend any more time on it. It's kind of, who cares?
Yeah.
iOS 18. So this is the interesting thing about this keynote is they just spent an hour talking about the first whole half. They didn't really talk about AI stuff at all. Occasionally they'd say this is machine learning enhanced or something like that. And we'll have some of that stuff in here. This is also where Craig ripped off the quick release jumpsuit and just was wearing like his normal nerd shit underneath. The first thing that they showed was cosmetic stuff. The home screen adjustments where you have night mode and day mode for icons, as well as your wallpaper and images and stuff like that, which I think is this stuff I'm kind of excited about. The first thing that they showed is something that Android people have had, I think, since the very first release of Android.
Yeah, definitely saw plenty of Android users confused at that getting attention. Just like, wait, you couldn't do that already?
Nope. They've been at the top and going down ever since iOS launched. You can kind of cheat it by using the app tray shortcut, like Siri suggested apps. And you can have some apps at the bottom and some apps at the top. But yeah, you can, if you want to have your apps all near the bottom of the phone where your thumb is, you can do that now. Yay.
Exciting.
I mean, I guess good. The icon styles for dark mode are cool. It seems like the thing I couldn't tell was if developers have to generate these or if it happens automatically. It seemed at first like developers had to generate them. And then the way they were showing it working, it looked like it just happens automatically, which is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, like the iPad, well, maybe iPhone, iOS as well, but definitely iPad has been able for years to just do like smart color invert as an accessibility feature.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that's simple math, right?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing something similar.
I think they're pulling background and foreground out using the onboard machine stuff and then adjusting tones intelligently based on that. You can also theme your tones across the entire thing. So if you want to make all of your icons have a green tint or a yellow tint or a blue tint, you can do that.
I enjoyed people on Twitter pulling the brand guides, brand Bibles for like Meta, Google. I'm trying to think of like 2 or 3 others. I saw all of them are like this should be the logo. This is how the logo should always be presented. It should never be changed in shape or size or color.
Does Meta own my phone or do I own my phone?
Apple do not care.
Yeah. So you've been able to do this with Android launchers for ages too. This is a thing that's been around for years and years. You also I watched people when they let you create custom shortcuts, icons for shortcuts. People went ham doing this with their phones and making, instead of having screens full of apps, they had screens full of shortcuts to their apps that were the custom shortcut that like basically made a shortcut that looked like the app and had the same name as the app and had a different icon for the app that was a shortcut to launching the app.
That is an incredible amount of work to change an icon.
It took a lot of time. I mean, look, when we got the tray on Android, on iOS, and we're able to just like keep most of the applications there and use the homepage as like a screen of shortcuts, which is what I switched to immediately. I don't. Do you still have wall after wall of icons, Brad?
Yes, but only because I'm too lazy to. We'll talk about it later. Another feature they announced is something I'm gonna finally use to clean up my years of cruft on my home screen. But yes,
I like this. Okay, so yeah, you can change the tints. People were posting some real horror shows on Blue Sky and Twitter that I saw that they'd created. I am excited. Like, I think this is a legit exciting feature. It means everybody's phones aren't going to look exactly the same, which is nice.
Yeah.
And it means if you have like a picture of your kid on your homepage, you can move the icon so they don't cover up their face, which I also like. They added, they're changing Control Center. I'm not sure about this one.
This was one of probably the biggest things I was bullish on.
So Control Center is the thing you swipe down from the top right. It has like hot shortcuts.
On your phone. Yes. Okay. I'm sitting here going, no, it's from the bottom up, but that's on.
Oh, that's on. You're phones, on the old phone.
Phones with home buttons.
Yeah. You swipe down from the top right. It has like controls for music playback, like your Bluetooth audio outputs, some home stuff, volume, brightness, airplane mode, Bluetooth. What else?
You can customize all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's actually, I think that's the biggest thing here is that it's far more customizable now. And it sounds like I think third-party developers can start adding widgets to it now as well. But even before, there was like, you could put the Notes app in there, alarms, like the QR code reader. Trying to think what else, flashlight. I'm trying to think what else I've got on mine.
So all of those shortcuts are now stuff that people can develop into, can build into. That was previously kind of locked back. Also, it means that the flashlight and camera button on your home screen are not fixed anymore, and you can control what goes there. The thing that I don't know that I love is the adding multiple pages. I think that's a place where having a quick access with one page is really valuable, and having multiple pages seems like a step back.
I mean, it's optional. I kind of see where you're coming from, but it seems like they've also just expanded the size of the page.
Well, it scrolls infinitely right now.
Does it?
Yeah, mine does.
Huh. Okay.
I realized so all of my Apple Home stuff is in there, and mine got kind of long as a result. I do kind of like the idea of moving the home automation stuff onto its own tab, and I think the media playback stuff goes on its own tab, is the way it looked like in the screenshots.
Is that mandatory or?
It seems like it's structured because there are icons for the second and third pages.
Interesting.
And then maybe there's more pages after that you can make. I don't know.
Okay. Home controls are like the thing I use Control Center for the most. So I hope those are not like extra clicks to get to now.
My guess is that front page is still, you can put whatever you want on it. And then the other two are specialized. You also can bind, if you have a phone with the action button, which is what they replaced the hardware silence switch with. You can bind that to whatever you want, to any of these actions now too, it seems like.
That's cool. I kind of wish they had just added the action button to the physical mute toggle and not replaced.
Well, but it doesn't work because then it's because the physical mute toggle is on off, and this is a momentary.
No, I'm saying that's what I mean. Like you could have just left the mute toggle as it was and given you an action button to customize separately from that. I appreciate having the physical feedback of like just sticking my hand in my pocket and knowing instantly if the phone is already muted or not.
That's true. They had new privacy stuff. You can lock an app so that you say this needs a Face ID or Touch ID or code authentication before you open it. You can also, that also means when you do that, it means that the bits from inside that app won't show up for Siri or search or presumably the AI stuff unless it's unlocked, which is good, I guess. I don't like, I feel like this is something that corporate people want probably, because you can then put your, like, you work in HR at some big company, you can put your HR app behind one of those locks, and then you're not accidentally leaking information into Siri and search.
Yeah, that makes more sense than I was trying to figure out how, like in a parental control context, this would be useful. Because I mean, I guess maybe parents hand their phone to their children occasionally, but this is what you're describing makes a lot more sense.
Well, so parents hand phones to kids a lot. There's some things like password manager is a bad example because it automatically unlocks, but like you might not. The other example I'm sure is porn. So people who have their homebrew porn don't want to have that on their phone where it's easily accessed in case they hand their phone to somebody, right?
Sure.
The other one is you can hide apps and put them in a locked folder that just isn't visible at all, which there's a lot of reasons you would want that. We don't need to speculate about that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's more granular controls over context sharing. I'm sure, just to be clear, I'm sure that people in the Discord comments thread are going to post a whole bunch of entirely innocent reasons you would want that. I have not been able to come up with any of them in the 2 days that I've been thinking about this. So more granular controls over context sharing. So like when an app asks you for access to your contacts, it will say, instead of saying, hey, do you want to give no access to your contacts or access to all of your contacts? You can say, No, I only want to give access to these 2 contacts because these are the 2 that matter.
Just how the photo library works with a lot of apps now. Like you have to approve each photo.
Exactly. And then the same thing again for local device access. So it'll say, oh, okay, my scale app is able to connect via Bluetooth to my scale, and my blood pressure cuff app is able to connect via Bluetooth to my blood pressure cuff, but they don't get access to my Apple TV and all the other devices on my LAN. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
They've added RCS support to messages.
Yeah, I missed that until I saw it in your notes just now. That's huge. I mean, yes. I guess like every other carrier and endpoint phone, Target also needs to support it before that really matters.
No, it's already done. We're already there.
Is Apple literally the last one?
Apple is the last one. I think a couple of the carriers in the US don't, but presumably they'll come online around the time they do.
Yeah, RCS is the successor protocol to SMS, which was the original text message standard.
Yeah.
Which I was looking at it a little bit recently. I don't have the whole like kind of feature list in front of me. It's not. I don't think it's as good as iMessage or Messages or whatever you're calling it these days. But
it's not as good as any of the proprietary things.
Right, but it's better. It's
it's like bigger pictures, more Unicode support, stuff like that.
It's text messaging that's getting closer to the feature set of something like iMessage. And I want to say initially it was not end-to-end encrypted, but that actually Apple might have stepped in. I think they got involved with like revising the spec, and it might be encrypted now. I'm not sure.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
the encryption was back and forth, so I don't know where.
Yeah, I should look that. But the bigger point, especially with just all the the blue bubble, green bubble message war shit that gets extremely tedious. Like having a better baseline text messaging standard kind of helps there.
I don't know that it helps with the spam problem, unfortunately.
Yeah, God, that's gotten awful.
But it does mean that if you send a photo to an Android person, they're not going to get a 2007 resolution photo back, which is nice.
That's the important stuff.
I think I don't think RCS is probably worth a full episode. Maybe when we do another potpourri small topic episode, we'll put it in there because it seems like we could do a half episode on that probably. Tapbacks. So now, the little exclamation point or thumbs up or thumbs down or question mark or haha you can add. Now you can add any emoji, any sticker, and the new generated memojis, which we'll talk about in a minute. I think I'm not sure about that actually. You can do scheduled sends. The Android people are laughing again because that's been in Android forever.
Sure.
You can do more text formatting. You can do strike throughs in text now. So you can be extra smarmy in your text messages. And there's more text effects. So like more bumps and bangs and drizzles in and all that stuff. And you can do you can send messages via satellite.
That seems huge.
I don't think you can receive messages via satellite. I think they were very careful to only say send. So you hold it works the same way as their like remote, hey, I'm stuck away from the cell network and I'm trapped the 137 hours scenario, basically.
Yeah. Like the number of situations of somebody like hiking in the wrong direction in a national park and getting in major trouble that this would help alleviate is pretty huge. Yeah. I
mean, I know people whose lives probably would have been saved by this, but
I also know someone. Yes. Did they go into detail about like how this is available? Can you turn this on and use this at any time, or does it depend on like certain network conditions not being present before it'll offer it?
You have to be offline.
Okay.
So you have to be someplace where you're outside of range of cell service. There's but then you basically say, hey, you don't have it pops up a thing and you have to do the thing where you aim it at the sky in the right place and all that stuff. And
I hope you get there. I hope that logic is foolproof. I hope it's not like, it technically thinks it can see a signal, so it's not going to give you this, even though the signal is not actually functional type stuff.
So I've had the SOS stuff pop up on my iPhone before, when I've been places where there's no signal. And it gave me when I hit the button, it gave me the option to start the thing. They're not charging for this, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I assume the cost is low. I am curious if it's two way. It seems like it's only one way. So it's like, hey, did you get to the campsite? Yeah, I got to the campsite. I'll tell you when I get to the campsite was the example they gave, I think. Which
that would be a little nerve-wracking in a disaster situation for you. I mean, you can update people with what's going on, but then you won't know they got it until somebody shows up.
Don't know if people left you unread. Well, I mean, on the disaster situation, you get two-way. So when you use the SOS, you get a, hey, we're connecting you with blah, blah, blah. And then they dispatch somebody to your position. You can send pins. I think was one of the things it said you could do. So that's interesting, and it works with SMS and iMessage users, so they'll get you over to the SMS network. They added a bunch of new mail stuff, which I'm always curious about how many people actually use the Apple Mail app on their phone.
Yeah, I use it occasionally. I mean, that's what I use for mail. If I use mail on my phone, for what it's worth.
Oh, really?
I'm mostly tied into various Gmail/Google apps accounts. But
yeah, I just use the Gmail app. I'm messing up.
I guess that would work too.
I've started using it on the job hunt because I set up a special email address just for that, so that I would not have 23 years of spam coming into those addresses as well. The big thing that they're doing is auto categorization of messages, not just based on who are your priority contacts, but based on stuff you've interacted with. Like they're applying machine learning to spam filtering, which seems and mail categorization. So it like knows that this is all from the same company. It'll dump those all together and give you digest versions and stuff like that, which is kind of interesting. They're adding trail hikes to maps. You can send cash directly from person to person by bumping your phones together.
That seems awesome. I mean, obviously, A, it's only with other iPhone users. B, they need to be opted into Apple Cash. So it's a relatively like limited self-selecting pool of people you can do this with. But
I think everybody's opted into Apple. I think everybody can send and receive Apple Cash if you have a credit card attached to your Apple ID.
Oh, you might be. Yeah, you might be right.
You might have to have a phone that'll do Apple Cash transactions. But like I got Apple Cash from my sister-in-law, sent me Apple Cash when I had never used it before and had never signed up for anything. So
and it just shows up as a credit to your credit card. I got a notification
like, hey, here's $90. Yeah,
to your credit card.
No, it shows up in my Apple Cash bucket. Apple became a bank.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. I forgot that they are technically like their own financial intermediary now, right?
Yeah.
So it just sits in limbo until so it's like a PayPal, right? Basically it's like until you set up an actual bank account or something to transfer it into, it just kind of sits there.
Yeah. So I could transfer it back out to my debit card, or alternately you could just use it anywhere that people take Apple Pay.
Right.
So yeah, like it's like, that's fine. It seems like the nice thing about it is it's anonymous. So like if you're buying something at a street fair or something, you don't want to give that person your email address or Venmo or whatever, you could just bump your phone to their phone and then they don't have to have a Square payment or anything. It's just is a cash transaction. I assume there are limits on how much you can do that.
Sure.
So they don't have vendors just using it instead of a cash register.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of my youth, like how often you'd be out with friends, like splitting drinks, going out to dinner, stuff like that. Just like the ease of being able to just throw money at each other like that seems huge.
Or like when we were working in the same office and you'd be like, hey, can you grab me, you're going to the udon place, will you grab me some noodles? And then I had to figure out how to get you $9.
Right.
Yeah. So I like, this is good. Like the Venmo has already solved this problem for people, but the anonymity is nice. They're adding game mode. This has been on the Mac for a minute. It minimizes background activity, turns off notifications and stuff like that, and it improves the responsiveness of your Bluetooth controller and AirPods. I don't know how it does that. I'm curious about that. I got to read about that. Photos are getting more machine learning stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute, but they did a complete redesign. It's a unified app with a single view. There's no more of those multiple tabs where you're like, where's my camera roll? I can't find my camera roll. What even is a camera roll anymore? The grid shows your entire library, it looks like now, scrolling back infinitely in days, months, or years. And it has a bunch of collections that seem to be auto-generated. They talked about those more in the AI section at the end. So we'll come back to that, I guess.
Yeah, that all seems good. Like the Photos app has been kind of a mess for a while to me.
Yeah, the thing that they do that I really like, because most of my other, like Google constantly wants me to delete screenshots and receipts. So I take pictures of screenshots of things that I need to save, and then they end up in my photo roll. And I don't want to delete them, but Apple was just like, hey, what if we hide them? Like, that sounds great. And we'll hide the shit out of those.
I use a standalone app for that kind of thing.
That's crazy.
I've been using it since before it was viable to use just your photos for that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
I use Genius Scan. Remember that?
Yeah, I used to use that.
Because it can, what's the term? It basically can take a photo and make it grayscale very easily, something like a receipt or an NDA, which I've signed a shitload of NDAs in my career. You know what I mean? Like it's basically as good as kind of having a scanner. You can take a picture of a thing and it'll kind of flatten it and make it look more presentable as a document, and it can export to PDF straight into your Dropbox very easily.
Well, so the Dropbox app just does that now too.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Has for a long time. Genius Scan got eaten by everybody else who works with documents, because I think iPhone will even do that if you send it to your Drive folder now. Anyway, that's it. That was it for iOS stuff. It seems pretty good.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
The audio and home section was next. Yeah, if Siri asks you something while you have your AirPods in, you can shake your head or nod your head to answer.
That is right up there behind shaking your phone to undo on the list of public gestures I'm not really keen to make.
It's just a real subtle one.
I don't know, man.
I thought this was good. I use my AirPods a lot, though.
I mean, I could see the utility. You just look kind of silly.
I mean, I have white sticks hanging out of my ears. I remember how silly those were when they first came out. Now you can't walk anywhere without seeing 10 pairs of them.
Yeah, I guess people are used to just seeing individuals walking around talking to nobody. Yeah, now, that kind of thing. So whatever.
It used to be that we assumed they were old, like 80s Mac fans when you saw that at Macworld. They do voice isolation when you're using your AirPods, walking around in loud or windy areas, so that they just pull out the voice for the receiver, for the person who's not you. So you're talking to somebody on the phone and they get a clear signal, even though it's loud. I feel like they've done this for years, and they're just doing a better version of this now. And then personalized spatial audio is coming to games. This is the thing where you take a picture, where you scan your ear with the depth camera, and they change the way the model for the spatialized audio works based on that, which works shockingly well.
I already gave my ears to Mark Cerny. Sorry,
Mark Cerny. They also have stuff coming for HomePods, but that all seemed kind of tedious. tvOS stuff. They're adding Insight, which is basically Amazon's X-ray feature.
Yeah.
The thing where it shows you what actors on the screen and what music's playing in the background. And there's a little bit about the show.
Yeah. I thought Amazon may have some form of this, but in this case, you can click the song and add it straight to your Apple Music library, which is a nice tight integration with their music service.
Yeah. So Amazon's X-ray started as a Kindle feature where it would tell you, like, it would pull context related information out of the book that you were reading, and you could like click on it was really great when you're reading Game of Thrones books, because there were so fucking many characters. So you'd click on it and tell you it would give you the like quick bio of the character and show you all the other places that person's name popped up. They added it to the Apple Video or Amazon Video service, and they don't do music. I think maybe they do music, but it's mostly actors, I think, is what I've seen there. And it's basically the kind of thing you only see when you pause the TV, because I don't ever use it. This stuff also comes up on your phone when you use your phone as the remote. They're adding enhanced dialogue for more TVs and more speakers, including AirPods and HomePods, which is good. The enhanced dialogue thing is the thing that basically uses filtering to make voices stronger and background noise lower, so you can hear dialogue better.
Yeah, it's great that this is finally. It took like 5 years of think pieces about why does everybody use subtitles all the time now before people started paying actual like algorithmic attention to fixing the problem. But it's nice to see that it's actually happening. Like Jellyfin, the Plex competitor, the open source one, they just added a feature also that lets you there are multiple ways to handle the stereo down mixing now. If you have like a 5.1 something that you're watching,
you can crank up the center channel for voice.
Hilariously, and maybe this is a story for another time, the drop-down list of stereo algorithms to use are taken straight from a Stack Exchange post that I was already aware of, because I fiddled with this in FFmpeg like a year ago, because I was sick of watching movies and not being able to hear what people say.
Yeah. Do you have a 2.0 setup, or do you have no?
Yes, okay. I have a 2.0 setup. So the Jellyfin developers landed on the exact same Stack Exchange post I did, and are using the exact same FFmpeg parameters that I was using manually, because the drop-down algorithms are literally named after the poster usernames.
That's
from that
really
post.
funny.
It's really stupid. But
really
it's awesome.
Funny.
It's awesome that people are finally, like, really all it is you just, I'm guessing in 90% of cases, you just need the center channel to be a little bit amplified over everything else.
So I was going to say, I got rid of the rear speakers on my stuff years ago because they were a pain in the ass and my room doesn't really accommodate them. but I left the center channel, and my center channel is just always like 3 notches higher than the side channels, and I've never experienced this problem.
That is the way to go for sure. I see a lot of people seem to blame the working like sound mixers and like the Hollywood people that are doing the sound mixes. I'm guessing it's less. My gut feeling is it's less their fault and more the fault of the devices doing the on the fly mixing.
So if it works the same way it works in games, which I'm sure it doesn't, but in games you generally make the highest quality mix for like 7.1 or whatever, and then the others are just generated automatically. And my guess is that the automatic generations are not great.
Right.
And whereas in the old days, I'm sure that they did a DTS and a Dolby Digital and 15 different and a stereo mixes. Right. And now the stereo is just like, good luck.
Right. And in a lot of cases, you don't even have a stereo mix in the media. It's just your receiver or soundbar or whatever, or Plex doing the mixing, and they're not doing a good job of doing that elegantly. Anyway, nice that this is getting fixed.
And God help you if you only are using the speakers that are built into your TV in the year 2024. This is adding on a feature that they had years ago that I really liked, the Ask Siri on your remote. What did they just say? And it rolls back like 10 seconds and pops up subtitles on the screen.
Yeah, that's something Roku has had for a long time. If you rewind, it'll turn the subtitles on up to the point you rewound from.
I want to say this was a first of the modern. This may have even been on the last of the not modern Apple TVs. It was the first one it was definitely on the first one with an A processor. The subtitles now pop up when you pause or rewind or mute rather. They support 21.9 format projectors for Apple TV, which means you don't have weird black bars on the side of your stuff or top and bottom of your stuff if you're using a wide format. And they added screensaver portraits to Apple TV. The screensaver portrait stuff that they did, I guess this will come up later, so never mind. But Snoopy, you can have Snoopy on your Apple TV, and he'll come out and do stuff with Woodstock now, which
finally
great. WatchOS was the next thing they hit. They talked about fitness, and now they finally support pauses for streaks if you're injured or like traveling or can't do your streaks, so you can like get a Duolingo style pause on your fitness streaks, which is good.
I guess that's cool for people who like the gamification stuff is neat. I don't like hang my hat on it necessarily, but
when I get a good not working out streak going, I don't want to break that, man.
Sure. Fair.
There's a new fitness screen that shows more stuff and it's dynamically generated. And
I hope that like, I think up to now you have to go to your phone for anything more than basically that day's workouts. And even that's not super well exposed. It's really like the last workout you did, you can see kind of everything. But if you want to see that week's activity, you can't do it on the watch. And so I hope they're making it a little easier to see more summary data there.
Well, you get the weekly. Oh yeah, you're right. So you just get the day.
It is all limited to that day. Which I use the fitness tracking constantly on the watch. So that's nice to hear.
Yeah, that's good. And then the workout intensity thing is nice too, where it looks at your age, your relative fitness level, and then it kind of tells you, okay, you did 3 really intense workouts this week. You should maybe take it easy on this 4th day.
That would be handy for yes.
And that's both dynamically generated and customizable, like adjustable if you feel like it's done a bad job. They added a new health app that pulls all of the stuff. It seems like all of the stuff the watch can measure together. My guess is that this is leading up to having blood pressure on the next watch, called the Vitals app.
God, that would be wild. Blood pressure would be
if
huge.
They want to sell me a new watch, that's a good way to do it.
Yes, for sure. But also like this is just great anyway, because having all that stuff scattered across different apps is such a pain.
Yeah, it's they have like blood ox and breathing rate, heart rate, that kind of stuff on all in this app. It notifies you. It has different tiers of notifications, including a kind of severe one if multiple things are way out of range. So like if your blood ox drops and your heart rate drops, it's probably going to let you know that something bad's happening. My guess is you'll probably already know, but I don't know. Never had that happen before. And then the Smart Stack, which is that thing. It's the thing that I always forget exists.
I don't use it either.
You get to it by rolling the crown. And it's more dynamic, and developers can add activities to the Smart Stack now. So it's not just Apple stuff.
Yeah, I have not used that a single time since they introduced it.
Yeah, it's the normal path on new Apple features where if they don't make it accessible to the apps that I actually use, then it's only useful for people who only use Apple apps.
Yeah. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this year's watch announcement. Pretty heavy rumors. They're doing like the first like real major redesign of the form factor since the watch started.
That's interesting.
Probably the biggest rumor there is they're supposedly going to a magnetic band attachment rather than kind of the mechanical like slot design they have now.
I don't know if I like that. The mechanical slot's really sturdy.
Yes, I mean obviously, and it will break compatibility with every band you've ever bought.
Yeah.
I assume you've seen the rumors around the Switch 2 also using magnetic connection for the Joy-Cons.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that.
There's some new type of magnet. I don't remember the name of it. It's some kind of electrically activated magnet, but it's not an electromagnet. It's not you need to keep supplying current to keep this active.
It's like you just switch it on and off.
Yes. It's like a toggle. Like once you hit it with current, it goes to magnetic and then stays that way.
That's cool.
And so I wonder if they're doing the same thing here, because it must be a pretty sturdy degree of magnetism if that actually can. Anyway, the idea there is they can make it thinner because they have more space inside the housing without the inset for the band stuff. I'm really curious what they do to redesign it this year.
I mean, we've heard redesign rumors on that for the last couple of years, so it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I think depending on what the jump in price is, the Ultra looks really compelling to me because extra battery life seems better than I would happily have bigger battery with longer battery life than the smaller, more svelte package. But anyway,
yeah, you wear your watch 24/7, right?
Pretty much.
I just chuck it on. I have a charger on the nightstand. I just chuck it on there every night, so battery life isn't a thing for me.
So it's funny. This is a example of the thing getting smarter and being more stupid simultaneously. I got a notification the other day that was like, yo, your sleep patterns are really disrupted this week. You should look at it. And it's because I hadn't been going to bed with the watch on, but I'd been taking a nap in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you've gone from getting 7 to 6.5 hours of sleep to 1 hour of sleep a day. You should really think about adjusting your life, man.
How are you still functioning?
Yeah. I was fine, it turns out. So iPad OS was next. It's getting all the same stuff as the phone, basically. There's a bunch of new stuff. So home screen personalization on the same year, which is kind of unusual because usually that kind of feature lags a year on iPad. There tab bars that are in the iPad OS apps that have like a tray on the left or right side of the screen are now customizable. So you can drag stuff from that tray into the tab bar to like quick change between things, which is nice. They added a ton of new pencil stuff.
Okay.
Like a ton. The big one was the math notes stuff.
Yeah, so I wasn't clear if that falls under their Apple Intelligence umbrella or I assume that's active there.
I think it's
well, actually, hang on, we've buried the lead here. They are putting the goddamn calculator on the iPad.
Oh, I wasn't going to acknowledge that was something that we should celebrate at this late date.
But I believe the math notes are part of the calculator app.
The math notes are so the math notes are integrated throughout the OS. Oh. They're in notes. They're in all sorts of other places too. But they demoed it in the calculator app. So when you turn the iPad sideways and you have the pencil out, you can just write on the iPad like it's an 1800s slate chalk and slate math tool. And when you equals the equation, it just solves the equation for you.
That's pretty cool, I have to say.
It seemed pretty cool.
That's, watching it in action. That is some future technology.
Yeah, I feel bad. PCalc, and we've a bunch of friends who've made calculator apps over the years and charged 99 cents for them are going to have some challenges this year. They Sherlocked a lot of stuff this year.
Yes, there's another one we'll get to. Apple Sherlocks without mercy.
Yeah, Sherlocking, for people who don't know, is when they take a tool that has been a paid established tool that millions of Mac users buy, and then they just integrate it into the OS without killing that person's market immediately. Anyway, they added a lot of stuff for notes, a lot of just general handwriting stuff. One of the things that I like is that they tidy up your handwriting for you. Like they learn what your handwriting looks like and can make an idealized version of that for you, which is a little creepy, but like my handwriting looks like shit. So
that's useful.
Yeah, less shitty handwriting seems good. You could draw on screen shares.
Yes, that's more future tech. Like the hand drawn calculations and the handwriting correction both are just like, that's like some Back to the Future stuff. You know what I mean? That's some stuff that's some AT&T you will stuff.
Well, yeah, and the handwriting correction seems less gross to me, less weird to me, because like the resolution of the panel and the pencil and all that is such that it's not like, if you don't have the exact right kind of handwriting, it's really hard to do handwriting on the iPad. So making it more accessible seems good. You can draw on screen shares. There's a bunch of other stuff. It's funny. I think this is all coming to all of the pencils too. I don't think they didn't specify that this was only coming to the new pencil and the new iPad Pro. I think this is for everyone, at least for the most part. And then they did the parkour transition where Craig ran down some stairs. I air quoted Craig for audio listeners, and he like jumped over barricades, and it was bad.
Look, executives like to have fun too. What is his role there?
He's in charge of software.
That's a pretty big job, I guess. I've like kind of lost track of the Phil Schillers, and is Eddie Q one? Is he still there?
No, I think there's only like 3 executives that are still there when Steve was there at this point.
Yeah, kind of losing track of who's who.
I mean, at some point you make enough money that you're like, I'm probably good, and I don't want to have to work so hard anymore unless you really, really love the work.
Yeah.
So macOS Sequoia, Craig started this segment with a really extended bit about how the people who name shit like to get high. Continuing in his long tradition of jokes about naming an OS version of macOS Weed, because there's a town in California called Weed.
What is there? I need to get this. Sounds awful. I need to go watch this.
It's pretty bad. They did a really nice like motion graphics thing where it was like moving through trees. They're like you're going to the Sierras, and like it's really beautiful. And then there's this terrible VO over it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm going to say I'm a little burnt over the nature names for code names, or they're not even code names anymore. They're just product names. But. Well, I mean, look, eventually they'll run out of parks, and then they're going to like, it'll be like, hey, welcome to macOS Salesforce Tower.
God, shoot me. You know what was badass?
What?
Big cats.
Big cats.
The fucking macOS 10 Panther.
But you know what the problem with big cats is?
What's that?
There's only like 15 breeds of them.
Yeah. What if you went to slightly smaller wild cats? Could we do like macOS Manule?
I don't know. It sounds too much like manure, dude.
You should go look up a Manule. It's a very
is it Manool?
Manul. It's a very comical looking animal.
Oh wow! It looks like a meme cat,
right? It's like if a cat was a basketball.
Oh, they have these at the desert zoo in Palm Springs.
Really?
I think so. Is it a mountain cat? No,
I don't know.
Maybe I'd have to. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What else? You know what else matters? All the other stuff from the iOS and the iPad OS is coming to Mac OS.
That's great.
Hikes and maps, math notes, but you can type because there's no touchscreen on Mac still, inexplicably. Messages stuff, that is in there.
It's crazy that Microsoft beat Apple to the punch on making your tablet also your laptop.
Look, man, they're 2 distinct devices that run exactly the same hardware minus the touchscreen.
I'm sure they have enormous amounts of data about how many people buy both a MacBook and an iPad.
I mean, yeah, one is a consumption device and one is a creation device, Brad, even though they both have keyboards and trackpads. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, that's pretty much how I use them.
We didn't talk about this yet because this is, I think, the first place they talked about it. But there's a passwords app coming to all Apple devices.
Yeah, they're basically. It sounds like it is generally the same functionality that's been in like the iCloud Kit toolkit, but they're kind of splitting it out into its own app, right?
Yeah, it seems like they're going a little further. I think it's going to. They didn't say that it supports passkeys. I assume it has to support passkeys at this point. So because like if you have a device that doesn't support passkeys at this point, you've kind of made a mistake. It's available for Windows as part of iCloud for Windows app.
Yeah,
which sounds ominous.
Yes, kind of. Because otherwise, I would actually think about trying this maybe as my main password manager. But it really depends on how tightly it integrates with browsers on Windows, which I'm guessing it doesn't very well.
My guess is it runs great with Edge on Windows or something dope. Like they'll pick the one browser that's the dopiest possible choice, and then that'll be the one.
Yeah, like I'm guessing, hoping for like a Chrome extension is way too much to wish for here.
Well, I use Firefox, so I know I'm hosed.
Yes.
The good news for people who use existing password managers, whether it's BitLocker or 1Password or whatever, Bitwarden, sorry, or 1Password or whatever. I don't think this is going to affect any, like, if you only live in the in the Apple ecosystem, you're fine using this, right? Yeah. If you use any Windows machines, or God forbid something like a Steam Deck or a Linux machine or anything else, Chromebook, I would think really hard about signing up for putting all my passwords in a place that's a vendor specific implementation.
Yes, agreed.
Same thing applies to Microsoft or Google, frankly.
Yep.
They did a bunch of stuff. Continuity has been in for ages. This is the thing that was like gave you a universal clipboard, so you could copy something on your phone and paste it in on your Mac or iPad. They're adding new stuff to it. The iPhone mirroring, which we talked a little bit about before, basically means that if you've been able to get your phone notifications on your Mac for a while. What this means now is that when you click a phone notification on your Mac, it opens a view of the phone.
Yeah, it's
on your screen.
Yeah, we should be explicit about, like, this is literally like one-click screen mirroring from your phone to your laptop, and you can just interact with the phone with the touchpad as if it's huge. Like, this
seems
is
like having
enormous.
A touchscreen on the Mac would be really nice with this feature.
Sure. Well, I mean, the touchpad trackpad is big enough that and does multi-touch. Like, it's kind of the same.
Yeah,
close.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's just right there. They're one tiny step away.
Look, I don't want to filth up my laptop screen. All right.
I think this is awesome. I think this is really cool.
It's huge. This is the thing I was referring to earlier about, like, finally cleaning up my god awful mess of a home screen.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's time.
To be fair, I have like 2.5 pages of apps because at some point I got tired of either deleting or organizing into folders when I downloaded stuff. And I also don't use 90% of the apps on my phone anyway. Anyway, like, being able to just pull up the phone on the MacBook and use the trackpad and more quickly just, grind through all that organization. Pretty nice.
Yeah, it's you can also drag and drop into phone apps. They demoed
that's crazy.
Dragging something from, I think, Final Cut into a generation, like a sharing app on the phone.
Now, does that go both ways? Because if I can open an app through this on the phone and drag it to my desktop, that's like life changing.
My guess is you have to open the phone on the laptop and drag it from the phone to the desktop. But yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I
would assume so.
Yeah, that's huge.
The phone stays locked while you're mirroring it, and it's on standby, and like the standby thing where you have it sideways on a like a magnetic stand even stays on if you have that's the way you keep it on your desk. Yeah, I think this is a super cool feature.
It's awesome.
Makes me want a Mac.
Did they?
Good job.
Yeah. Did they say anything about how this would affect like your phone being stolen kind of situation?
What do you mean?
Like, does it work over cell? Does it have to be on a local Wi-Fi network?
My guess is it has to be local.
Okay, so you would not be able to, like,
Wi-Fi.
I mean, there's plenty. They have plenty of other anti-theft features built in at this point. It's not the end of the world, but
yeah, I don't think you're gonna be able to remote into it. I bet you can't look out of the camera while you're using the mirrored screen. Probably.
Sure. Yeah.
They've added tiling for Windows, which I was reasonably sure that they had in like the Jaguar days or something.
Nope.
Really?
As someone who, like, every time I go home, I work exclusively off of that MacBook, that 14-inch screen. It sucks trying to record a podcast where you need like a video window, your audio, editing app of choice, like a browser full of notes or like a feed of a game to look at it. It's impossible. It is like, that's why I use the iPad as a second screen when I'm out there as a second monitor, because window management on a Mac is abysmal. This is like the Android thing where Windows users are laughing because there's been like next to no snapping. I mean, there's a little. We don't need to get into it, but the demo video looked like pretty much what I want.
I think their whole thing. I guess what I'm thinking about is their whole. You hit Command Tab or something, and it gave you like the quick view of all the windows open on your computer, which was nice on a laptop, so you could switch back and forth between windows quickly. Anyway. This seems really good. Long overtime. You can do background replacement in FaceTime now. I assume this is also coming to the other devices as well. And they talked about games in the most Apple-y way possible, citing such 2024 bangers as Control.
Mm-hmm. And Control is timeless.
Death Stranding Director's Cut.
Death Stranding
Also timeless spread.
timeless.
Yeah. The big thing that they announced was that their porting toolkit is they're revving it to a new version. And then also Assassin's Creed is coming to Mac OS.
That's cool.
And
Wait, which
all
one?
iDevices. The one that's coming out this year.
Oh, Shadows?
Shadows.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
They that porting toolkit, they worked with the people who do Wine on that.
Oh, okay.
Code Weavers,
Code Weavers, yeah.
Yeah. Like it sounds like they're making an actual push to get more games ported more easily. That's cool.
I mean, maybe they're bringing down the Proton stuff and all that.
I'm curious to see how that runs on a laptop. Like on the phone, it's like an interesting academic exercise, but it's not something I would ever play. But like I assume the GPUs in the M chips on the laptops are actually like relatively beefy.
I mean, they're like souped up versions of the iPad one, right?
Well, yeah, maybe it won't be that great, actually. I don't know, but I'm still curious.
The upscalers are good. And anyway, it also has game mode on the Mac, which has been there for a long time, but they're adding the Bluetooth latency stuff to this as well. I may have already been there. So sometimes they announce things that they've already had. And then the other big thing on Mac OS is that you can get Apple Pay on third-party browsers, which is a wonderful for people who don't use Safari, despite it being the world's fastest browser or whatever stuff they say every time.
Yes, which no longer exists on Windows.
Yeah. So thus, we reach the end of the, hey, here are the things coming to products. And now we're going to talk about the thing that the shareholders are going to be excited about. Apple AI, the acronym for the one true acronym for Apple Intelligence. Okay, so we've heard a lot about AI. It's a lot of, hey, you can have the computer write for you. This is not, their approach was different than that, which I was kind of surprised by. They build it as personal intelligence, which is intelligence that understands you. And I realized that they're one of like two companies that can probably do this, meaning that they have trusted access to your contacts and calendar and photos and all of the things that you need for this to work. Google does for Android users. Microsoft doesn't really, because like I don't use my photos don't live on my computer anymore. My contacts barely live on my computer. And the things that they were pitching were things like asking it to make a collection of all of the pictures of your kid playing baseball over the last 5 years and stuff like that, which is like, actually it's why I signed up for Google Photos 10 years ago, is because it was able to do context aware search inside the photos. And when I searched for a picture of a dog, it popped up all of the pictures of the dog in my library. So like this stuff it's kind of interesting. Their pitch is that, Apple's the privacy company, is their longstanding pitch. They're saying that they're doing on-device processing, same way that Copilot Plus does with the NPUs, on everything from an A17 Pro and an M1 and newer.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like if any giant $1 trillion corporation has earned that trust, they've come the closest, like secure, like they were probably first with like the secure enclave and the SoC, right? Like there was the whole like refusing to unlock stuff for the FBI thing. Like they seem to like walk the walk.
I think I trust them more than I trust any of the other $1 trillion companies. Yes.
Yeah. Low bar. Be clear.
Low bar. Yeah. The private cloud compute. So this is where it gets hinky, is that they also have this thing that they call private cloud compute, which uses server models with what they called private servers. I haven't seen any security people do the takedown, like the breakdown of how this actually works yet. So we'll probably talk about this in the future, maybe in a Q&A episode.
No, what is that used for? Is that just like stuff that's too heavy for your phone itself to handle? They have to shunt it to cloud compute?
Yeah, so there's two different layers of, hey, we're going to shunt this to the cloud. There's the one that uses this, and then there's the one that goes to ChatGPT when you talk to Siri, like we'll talk about later on.
Right.
They're saying that they encrypt stuff between the device and the server, but I don't understand how sending it to a private, it's not like they're giving me a private cloud instance, right? They're not giving each user a private cloud instance. So somewhere there's an opportunity to log queries that go through and stuff like that. So I don't understand how it's not leaky in a way that most modern AI stuff is. But I mean, they are running these machines. They're running it on Apple hardware. So they're like, as they say, they're in the tool chain top to bottom. So in that regard, I guess that's good. I don't know. Like that's not a concern. Like I'm not worried about Intel or NVIDIA hacking the AI pipeline and stealing my data. I am worried about Apple using my data to make their AI stuff better.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Understandable. You touched on a question I was just sitting here wondering about, which is like, I wonder what Apple's backend stack looks like, like, because like
for training
or just for everything, like their server infrastructure in their data centers for the, like this stuff, the training, all of it, like I guess what I mean is like, how much like Linux and BSD are they using on the back end versus, because, like Mac OS is it's a certified Unix. It's a literal Unix, but it's not exactly like purpose built for massive data center use. So when they say it's Apple all the way up and down the stack,
they didn't say that. I said that, but they said it was running on Apple hardware.
Oh, okay. I see.
The private servers.
I see.
So like, I wonder what they're using to train. I wonder if they're buying big NVIDIA clusters or AMD clusters or something to train.
Right.
I wonder if they're, I wonder because there's two aspects. There's what does the model run on, which is what they're talking about here. There's also what do they train the model on and where do they get the data for that? So I don't know. I want to see the breakdown of this. We'll talk about it in the future because I'm curious about it. They're redesigning Siri almost completely. Like this is the big thing this year. It seems like
this might be the biggest thing in this entire presentation, because it sounds like they're finally turning Siri into what I try to use it as and get frustrated constantly by it not working that way.
Yeah, and just to be clear, they've pitched this a couple of times in the past. Like the original pitch for Siri was it's going to know everything about you, so it can combine the two different things in a way that you want, and it never really worked. It's like you had to learn how to work within its constraints, and this seems like it's adding ability to parse more complicated things.
Yes, that's amazing. I'm constantly just asking, well, not constantly, but occasionally I try to get Siri to harness more context than it's capable of actually understanding for just basic tasks, for like tweaking reminders or something like that, or like I use a lot of alarms for things like, like when to take medications and when to get that weekly too good to go produce order we always get, you know what I mean? And like, and I want to be able to say to Siri, like, hey, go delete every alarm that contains this word or whatever. You know what I mean? Like just something selective and contextual like that. And it never knows how to do stuff like that.
Yeah. So it seems like they're doing a lot more of that. The demo that they gave had somebody stumbling over their words as they were asking it to do something, and it recovered and did the right thing. Like I think she said, I need the weather tomorrow for Muir Beach. And then she changed it to Muir Woods or something like that. It's contextual. The context of the conversation carries over past between queries.
Yeah, that's huge.
So you can talk about somebody and then it'll say, okay, add them to the invite for this. And it'll know which person is them.
That's another one of those natural language things that you just expect to be there. Like it was like this thing has just been in the uncanny valley for a long time of you expect it to do more than it can because it feels like it should.
Well, it's funny because the way I've always worked with it is I know it works this way. So I just do the thing the way that I know it works rather than the way I would expect I would have this conversation with a human. Right.
Like that's how I usually tend to do things as well. But like it just I feel maybe it's the promise of it has never really been fulfilled. And that's frustrating.
Well, and it's often for me, when the failures happen, they stack. So like if you ask it to start playing music and it plays the wrong music and then you have to correct it and correct it and correct it, it just gets worse and worse and worse because it gets more and more confused. They redesigned it. The ball's gone. So it like pulses in from the edge of the screen now using the cool curved bits on the edge of the glass.
I thought that pulse looked kind of cool. I wonder if they're doing that, excuse me, on the handful of hard edge 16 by or not 16 by 9, but like I still have a phone that is just a rectangle screen.
I don't think you're going to get the you're not going to get it because you don't have the right processor.
Oh, right. Yes. I wonder if that's just a full, like across the product line brand makeover though for that. I'm not going to get the AI features, but are they still going to refresh the look of Siri across the whole product line?
I don't know. We'll see.
That's an interesting question. There are a bajillion because I don't know if we mentioned you need
it's last year's high-end processor, an M1.
Yes, you need an iPhone 15 Pro or newer to use any of this stuff. So there's a ton of iPhones that aren't going to be able to do any of this.
I think it's 14 Pro.
Is it?
Because isn't it A18 this year?
Oh, maybe I might be right. I thought they said it was the A15 Pro. Anyway, yeah, it doesn't matter.
The double tap on the bottom of the screen to type to Siri is nice. I think that's really good. And then
I missed that. That's cool.
Yeah, because it's like there's times when you're laying in bed or something, you want to change something, and it gives you an easy way to do two things at once.
Sure.
And then it's using the machine vision stuff to know what's on the screen when you talk to it. So if you have a recipe open, it knows it can look at it and be like, oh, this is a recipe. What should I do now? I saw that and I was like, oh, when I'm cooking, I'm going to use this because I often have 3 timers going and they're for different things. And I can just say, hey, start a timer for the potatoes, blah, 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 whatever the recipe says.
I wonder if it has deep hooks into content yet, where you could say like, hey, take just the recipe on this webpage and turn it into a PDF. So and put it in files or something like that.
They talked about that kind of stuff. They're building a bunch of default intents for different app types. They said they're going to continue to do those. So it's like pre-trained stuff like adding filters to photos and working in manipulating spreadsheets and stuff like that. The weird thing about all of this is that all of this sounds pretty good. It doesn't really solve any of my other concerns about the AI stuff, but it seems like these use cases are like the cases that they're set up are designed to minimize the places where the machine can lie to you, has the opportunity to generate a lie to make you happy. And that like that minus the energy stuff, which I still am freaked out about, solves a lot of the problems that I have with some of the broader generative stuff. The writing tools is another example of them, instead of generating something from scratch, like helping you make the stuff that you write better. I'm skeptical that any of this is going to be worth a shit.
I mean, I freeze framed on some of the examples they showed, and it's not something I would use necessarily, but I can see how some people would like it.
We're also arguably probably better writers than most of the general population because we spent like 10 years getting yelled at for bad writing.
I've we've written countless articles and like triple countless numbers of emails in our careers. But
more than that, going through the editorial process where your stuff is edited and you get questioned on stuff is a really good way to get better at writing fast.
Right. Yeah, that's what I meant. I could see why it would be useful to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Let me jump in. But like crucially, they did not say or show any kind of feature that will just generate text for you, right?
Did not at all. They showed automatic rewriting where you like highlight a paragraph. You're like, hey, here's 5 different versions of this that you can choose from, which is kind of like that's like that seems moderately useful.
Yeah, that actually sounds kind of. I mean, that is maybe something I would look at just as a way to get some kind of feedback or variation. But crucially, it seems like you always have to provide the material first.
So I think my take on this whole thing is that instead of having people generate queries to generate text, they're doing an interesting job of building tools that create queries for you, prompts for the AI models for you. So what they're doing is I'm sure they're just generating a prompt that when you highlight the text, it says, hey, make a version of this that's less aggressive or more professional or more casual or whatever. And they're giving you the kind of finding that you need to generate those prompts without you having to know how to generate a prompt, which is smart. I hate it, but it's smart. And then I actually wrote, I hate this in the notes at this point. And then I said, technically, I don't hate this. I like that it's about changing work and not starting from zero, but like, it's still just generating a prompt for you. Parsing emails for events and stuff like that seems wonderful. That's part of this too. So like it sees that there's your friends that you talk to are asking you to come to a barbecue, and then it's going to automatically generate a barbecue calendar thing for you, which sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
And it might be enough to get me to stop using Gmail and Fantastical. Okay. So about this time is when I thought this stuff is starting to sound too good to be true.
Okay.
They got to reduce notifications focus, which is just like, I kind of want that on all the time.
Yeah. I'm very torn on this one because I got excited when I saw it because it's very necessary. B, it just kind of feels like, hey, we're just going to cover up the problem rather than actually fix the root of the problem, which is that there are way too many notifications.
Well, so the solve for the problem is to have a tool that helps you turn off notifications en masse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Because that's what I really want, is I want something that's like, yo, these are the 10 applications you've never opened a notification for. Just turn this shit off.
Yes, that would be very nice. There's also, I mean, there's kind of a granularity problem in some cases. Maybe this isn't super widespread, but you have things like Uber where you absolutely need the notifications for your driver is here.
Yeah.
but they also send you all kinds of ad bullshit via notification all the time.
And that's a you got to get into the preferences for the application, not a system level problem, right?
Yeah, that is fair.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a way both on Android and iOS, I believe, to say, hey, this is a high priority notification within your notification chain.
That already existed.
Yeah, that's existed for a long time. So they should, because like I can get, I think I want to say, I can't remember the specific example, but I have something that when I was in a do not disturb, it pushed a notification through, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But it was a notification I actually needed because it was something high priority. I think the general, so the general idea of this feature is you can put a focus, and it's unclear to me if this is a focus setting for focuses you've created or if this is a new type of focus, but it's we only let through important notifications setting, which previously you could do for like favorite people. So you could say, okay, I always want to get text messages. Brad's one of my favorite people. I always want to get text messages. He sends me a text message, but you couldn't say these are the apps or these are the messages within the apps that are the important ones, like your Uber example, or hey, DoorDash just left food on your front step, or I don't know, something else. There's a smoke alarm going off in your house.
Right.
And this seems like they're applying machine learning to that. Now, I'm a little skeptical, but this seems like the kind of problem that machine learning should be good for.
Yeah, you would hope so. It's just that the penalty for failure is extreme if the thing you miss is extremely unmissable.
I assume they err on the side of not missing rather than missing, but like, who knows?
Yeah, one would hope.
Yeah, so that was interesting. Then we get into the horror show with the image creation stuff. This is where it started to go off the rails for me. So it was a real hard swing here. They have these Genmoji things, which is like, the Memojis. You love them, you know them. It's like a little picture of you. You can animate it. You can make it your avatar if you're in a FaceTime call. It's already a little bit of a nightmare factory, but it's like the cool guy version of me.
They're a cultural institution at this point.
Yeah. But it followed the traditional path of, hey, all my friends are going to start using. It's like the Snap. What are those Snap stickers? The Snapchat owns them. They're like hips to something. Hold on,
Keep going.
Hip. Nope, not Hip Camp. Snapchat. I don't remember what it's called. Shoot, Snapchat.
I keep wanting to say Hipstamatic, which was a very different thing.
It was not that. Let me see. I have the app still installed, I'm sure. More. Let's click more. Memoji.
Live demo, folks.
I disabled the app because it annoyed me, I guess, at some point in the past. Anyway, it used to be a thing that Snapchat owned, and you could make little avatar versions of you and then send pictures of yourself to your friends. And it started out as a thing that all of my friends were using ironically to indicate how stupid it was. And then pretty soon we were actively communicating using the stupid thing that we all hated.
That's the problem with irony.
Yeah.
It becomes sincerity when you're not looking.
It is Bitmoji is what it was.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
So then that's what then they introduced Memoji, which was kind of Apple's take on this without like the Star Wars branding and all the stuff that they tied in, because I want to say the Bitmoji probably made a fair amount of money for Snapchat, given by how many like integrations they got with Guardians of the Galaxy and all that stuff. The next step of that is Genmoji, which is AI created generative memojis, which like you could have a sloth memoji and you could have whatever. I don't understand how this is generative. It just seems like they had people making a bunch of these.
Yeah,
but I guess it's generative. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of I think the examples are very contextual or situational, right? It's like, I don't just want a cat dressed as a chef. I need the cat dressed as a chef to be making lasagna.
Yeah, and it also needs to be worried about Mondays.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. It like I feel less bad about this because this feels less infringy.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I definitely kind of get the need, because there certainly have been times that I wish there was an extremely specific bespoke emoji I could drop as a very specific joke that didn't exist.
Of course.
And if to be able to make that, there's something to that idea. But yeah, also like, what did they train this on? Like emojis?
They're training this on emojis and art they created, presumably, and then general purpose pictures of things.
Right, like pictures of food, pictures of animals, and then the art style comes from the existing giant pool of emoji that they control.
Yeah, but like at the same time, if I can type in, I want a Genmoji version of me, drinking a tea in the Kermit meme, but in the style of Lisa Frank. And if it does that, then I feel bad about it again. So hopefully it didn't.
Sure.
Hopefully they're not stealing people's art, I guess, to make these.
Oh, I thought this was constrained to looking like the existing emoji style.
They do look like the existing emoji style, but often the constraints, the rails on this stuff are pretty easy to bypass. So
sure, that's fair.
As always, it's all in the implementation, I think.
Yeah, actually, now that I'm looking at some like the initial ones they show examples of are like the very classic emoji smiley face, just round yellow smiley face, except with cucumber slices for eyes.
Yeah.
That could be an existing emoji, right? Like that could have come right out of the pool on your phone already. But then, yeah, as you get a little deeper into the video, you see some stuff with backgrounds on it.
And there's like cakes
here's my cat chef example, actually. And yes, that one is a little bit more of a bespoke art style with like a full on background and everything.
Yep.
Of course, the other angle of that though is like, what is this replacing? I feel like what are the pertinent questions about generative AI you need to ask? Where did they get the data they trained on? What role is this playing, and what is it replacing? Right.
Yeah.
And I guess in fairness, it's not like there's a thriving like app store of emoji artists. This is undercutting. You know what I mean?
I will tell you, there is a large market in artists building pixel art imagery for Twitch streams and YouTube streams and stuff like that.
Sure. But I mean, specifically in the context of where this can be used, which is iMessage, right? Like
that's true.
They don't let you bring outside images in that way, right? Aren't you limited to what they provide already?
So stickers fit in that category of things you can add in, but you can't do stickers as so the thing is, you can add these as like the hit reactions on all your iMessages now. Stickers were kind of that. I still think the stickers are gated somehow. I don't really use the stickers, so it's hard for me to all of my stickers are emoji and like animal. It's like the animals that you can make be your avatar, doing different emoji reactions. So it's like, here's a skull with its head exploding off with a mushroom cloud on it, or crying, or with stars, or whatever. I assume that one's not in China, probably. Here's the poop emoji looking very surprised and very upset and grumpy and with naughty language bleeps over its mouth.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a bit weird, but like if for something where you're just looking for a one-time throwaway joke that you're never going to use again.
Yeah.
Not like you're going to pause your text conversation and go commission an artist to make that for you. So
there's an argument about devaluing the value of art, but like I said,
yeah, that's fair.
It feels less to me. It feels less bad to me somehow because it feels like a souped up character creator.
Sure.
Like it feels like you could build a non-AI version of this tool and it would work effectively the same way. For all we know, this may not even be an AI version of this tool. This could just be a non-AI version of this tool that they're dumping an infinite amount of art into. Anyway. Yeah. There's also Image Playground, which is this is another one of those things that feels like like a prompt generator. So it is you can describe the image of the thing you want. Grandma wearing looking very happy and doing something birthday was one of the ones that they gave. There's an API so you can integrate it in your apps, and they showed generating shitty images of different things that people were putting into a bunch of different places. And it seemed very easy and kind of like it's the least interesting thing I can think of using this technology for.
Yeah, some of the images I see coming out of this thing are less appealing.
They suck. A lot of them are real bad.
Than the emoji context.
Yeah. So yeah, like I think the Genmoji thing is kind of potentially interesting in the same way that like your stickers and your Memoji and your what was the other one? Bitmoji.
Bitmoji.
Yeah, same way they were.
Yeah. I mean, I think just within the very narrow and crucially private context of goofing with or trolling your friends.
Yeah,
it's a little bit less
bad
of an issue, and part of that is because they did not go harder with generative stuff across the rest of this announcement.
Yeah,
like this is kind of the what we've just described, as far as I can tell, is kind of the extreme of what they're offering here, right?
I think it's the closest to what I would describe as a traditional AI application.
Yes.
The other thing that they added is this image wand thing that transforms rough sketches. So a lot of this stuff is ending up in the Notes app specifically. There's a lot of like the text wiggle, like the text correction and the handwriting correction and the math notes stuff is all ending up in the Notes app. There's a lot of like, hey, you can record a lecture and it'll generate an AI generated summary of that lecture after the lecture is over, or it will generate just notes for you if you want, which like, I'm not going to lie. That one sounds okay. Like, like automatically, like there's value in taking meeting notes, having been the person who takes meeting notes in most of the meetings I've been in for the last 20 years. But it's also really interesting to have a machine do that so you can focus on like being a more active participant in the meeting a lot of times.
Right. That kind of makes me realize this could probably be used to generate podcast chapters at some point.
Let's not get crazy. Okay?
I'm not saying I would do that. I would probably never trust it, but
yeah, that's a good point though, because a lot of the stuff I would use this stuff for is stuff that I would love to do if I had more time. But because I don't have time to go back and check it, and I know that these are machines that we've taught to lie, I'm less inclined to treat the output of this as trustworthy.
Right.
There's a great, from the ChatGPT section, there's a great little disclaimer at the bottom of the ChatGPT interface in Siri where it says, check information for mistakes at the bottom of every ChatGPT interaction. So, that's a ringing endorsement, I guess.
Yeah.
So the image wand, you move it over, you'd like do a rough sketch in your notes document, and then you kind of just highlight it with this. It's just like a normal drawing tool, but it turns the rough sketch into an image. I'm wildly curious to try this.
Yes, I mean, it'd be fun to see what it comes up with. I don't know. There's also there's a certain artistry even to like crappy dashed off rough sketches.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes the expressiveness in even something that's simple is preferable to something that looks nice and professional.
Like there was a person on Reddit for years that would just do shitty paint drawings of things that people asked for.
Yeah.
It was great. I love that.
Yeah.
Photo editing lets you, like, this is a thing that's existed in Photoshop and a lot of other things. It's in the Photos app now. It lets you take stuff out of the background really easily.
What is that? What they call those, like, kind of content aware features, basically?
Well, Adobe calls it like content aware erase and stuff like that. It's basically cloning the right part of the background or inferring what's in the background. I'm sure it's going to create some real nightmares, but also like there's a real appeal of being able to do that easily. Google has a feature where if you take like 10 pictures of a big group of people, it'll take the good heads from each of the people in the how like the one picture where 9 people are good and one person blinks, and it'll take a good head from one of the other pictures and put it on that person for the other one. Like, I think that's maybe more useful ultimately, but I also spent a lot of time taking pictures of large groups of children, which is a fucking nightmare.
Yes, I can imagine. You'll note the sample photo they used here has a very like easily repeatable background. It's a bunch of like gravel or rocks and water.
Well, and it's a beach, which the machines understand.
That's what I mean. It's like the sample image they've used here is probably very easy for the machine to replicate this repeatable background over top of the people they want to remove.
And also the context of the things they're removing. Like one person is a person holding a selfie stick, I think, and the other one is like a guy with the tall hat at the Queen's house.
Yeah, yes.
What are they called?
Beefeaters?
No, they have the flat hats, not the tall ones.
Oh, I don't know.
Royal Guard or something. Anyway, we're not English. We don't have to know this.
No.
Natural language search for phone camera and pictures and videos, which is like, I kind of was surprised that this wasn't in there already. I thought you could search for dog on the iPhone and it would give you a dog, give you the pictures of a dog.
Am I missing something here? I've definitely searched with text.
Searching inside videos is new.
Yes, that definitely. Maybe it's just more robust text search.
It may be smarter. It may be that it doesn't know people. I don't
Yeah, like the example they're using here says Maria cartwheeling on the grass. So I guess it's able to identify specific people. In some
yeah,
capacity.
like when I search for dog running, I get nothing. When I search for dog, I get pictures of dogs.
Sure.
So anyway, that's good, I guess. I assume that compute is going to run on the phone while it's plugged in and charging at night. Because like this feels like something you shouldn't have to run on the cloud.
Yeah.
The movie I wrote movie is generated based on context and time, and this is generating like the kind of, hey, do you remember? You can prompt it to generate specific movies based on verbal or written prompts, and it uses context of the images and the time they were taken and the location they were taken. All basically, like, this is one of those things that Apple can do because they have access to photos and contacts and your location data and all this stuff. So they make like a clip reel video of your different assembling a bunch of different shots from different time periods where you're doing, like, I think the classic example is, hey, here's every time I took my kid fishing between the time they were born and when they were like the most recent time we went fishing. And it makes a kind of like fishing through the ages thing or something. This is one of those things that you're looking at me like I'm a crazy person. I literally have a widget for the Google Photos version of this on my home screen because it always pops up something that makes me either really happy or super bummed if it shows me like a picture of the dog just before she died.
Yes, I certainly get that.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah. Live recording of calls along with the notes auto record and summarize. So if you're on the phone with somebody, you can hit a button and it'll start recording and say, this call is being recorded by the iPhone or something like that.
Oh, it does insert something? Because I was going to say you should probably be conscious of local surveillance laws.
Yeah, whether you're a two-party or one-party state and all that.
Yes.
But they specifically said it notifies everybody on the call.
Okay.
And then you get a text summary at the end, which is awesome. That sounds really good.
Yeah.
This stuff is all free with iOS 18.
Okay.
They're not charging for it, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, well, fairly standard for Apple. I mean, they are still a hardware company at their heart, at their core. But I mean, they do charge for the. I mean,
there's a lot of services they charge for now. I pay them $30 a month.
You're right. I mean, what is their big umbrella service? Apple One? Is that
Apple
what it's called?
One.
Yeah. Are you in
there's
that?
Apple One Plus, which has fitness too.
Oh God, what?
Yeah, so the Apple One, I think I pay $20 a month for Apple One.
Okay.
Because of phone storage. I think so. I'm going to tell you, if this stuff works as well as they demoed it, I'm going to switch. I'm going to stop paying for Google Photos and move my photos back into Apple.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, as far as charging for this stuff, like I don't feel like this all rolls up into one service that you could necessarily get away with charging money for. Like some of these features are pretty cool in and of themselves. But this is not like some cohesive whole, I feel like.
I think that some of this stuff, like the way I would charge for this if I were building a service around it, would be to put an umbrella that you get access to, like the better level of you get the cloud AI stuff if you're a subscriber to some tier of one or storage or something like that.
Yeah. Speaking of money, this might be out of scope for this episode. I think I saw that Apple's deal with ChatGPT or with OpenAI is like extremely disadvantageous to OpenAI.
Well, so we haven't talked about the ChatGPT thing yet.
Oh, well, that's okay. Yeah, we'll get to that.
So basically, if you ask Siri something and it gets a query it doesn't understand that it thinks ChatGPT can understand, like you ask it to plan a menu for you, was the example they gave, which seems like a fucking terrible idea given. Anyway, just don't ask ChatGPT to plan your vacations unless you like having bad vacations.
Sure.
Siri asks permission to share the question and then dumps it out to ChatGPT and then that ChatGPT lies to you. So OpenAI didn't get paid for this, which is right. According to Ed Zitron, he said that they negotiated a, hey, we're just going to do this for you deal for exposure, right. Which is incredible because it has enormous cost for them. It's only to the free tier of ChatGPT stuff. So you get presumably whatever the most current free tier ChatGPT model is. And it does have the check information for mistakes disclaimer at the bottom, which is incredible to me. If you're paying, you don't have to have an account to use it. So it just goes through. I assume they're giving you they're making a hash account for your phone that is just always you. And then you do get paid features if you're logged into ChatGPT on the phone. And they want to do other AI models in the future as well.
Oh,
so like I wonder if you can do like a Llama 3 or Stable Diffusion or something like that that's running on a local machine. I'm curious about that. And that's it. The last thing they closed with was, hey, they want to make all this stuff accessible to developers starting in the fall when this ships to users. So they're building out intents that have pre-structured queries and stuff like that. So it's relatively easy to add it for I assume as much stuff as they can get done between now and then. But betas are out now for developers. Public betas will be later this month, and everything ships in the fall, same as always.
Yeah, along with new phones, presumably.
New phones and probably new. I think we're due for new watches around then too. I can't remember. I think they do watches in the fall now.
They definitely do. They might announce them at the same event as the phone, or maybe like a month later or something. I'm not sure.
Anyway, it was like, what did you think after all this? Like, where did you end up?
I mean, I'm not like jumping out of my chair for any of this stuff. Well, you mean the whole thing or just the AI stuff?
Yeah. I would ask what's like, I came out of this pretty like feeling like I expected to be pretty down on whatever AI stuff they came out with. And I would say I'm neutral. Yeah, probably on all of this.
That's like nothing in the AI stuff is anything I'm like jumping out of my chair to use. It seems like the least bad implementation of this technology of anybody who's using it at the moment.
That seems right.
Or the least exploitative. Or at least
damaging. Yeah.
I mean, how useful it is remains to be seen. Like some of the like we talked about before, like the handwriting cleanup, the live math equation solving, stuff like that is pretty clearly beneficial.
It's cool. If nothing else.
Yes.
I like, for me, it feels like I think a lot of the stuff would have landed harder if they hadn't essentially made these same promises multiple times in the past, especially like the stuff around Siri having context awareness between conversations and stuff like that. This is all stuff that they've said they have working in the past and then just never shipped, or if they did ship it, it didn't work very well. I
think the Siri one, like if making Siri more robust and able to more naturally just do things that you ask it to,
it's good
right instantly without a lot of massaging and guardrails and running into ceilings. That could be huge.
I've been looking for people who understand what they're talking about to talk about how the private cloud compute stuff works. There was an article on Fast Company that was kind of interesting, but not what I was looking for. So we'll talk more about that as we get more detail. I think that there was a session the day that we recorded this that talks about it, how it all like what the back end infrastructure is like. So there'll probably be more about that soon. And if there's stuff, we'll link it in the Discord and probably tweet about it or whatever your modern post Twitter equivalent is.
Yeah, broadly, I would say like among the AI stuff, like Siri is the only thing there that looks actually functional to me. Everything else is at best kind of novel. The stuff I'm the most excited about is fully outside of the AI. It's like better control center, RCS supports, freaking window snapping to corners in macOS. It's like the stuff I'm excited about is just a bunch of basic usability features that they have lacked and should have had already.
I'm pretty excited about the idea to add smarter filtering to the notifications. I think if that works, that's really exciting. I think the enhance, like, honestly, I think the secret Sherlock of this is all the 50 million note-taking apps that everybody uses. Mm-hmm. Because I think that I didn't even talk about it, but the freeform thing, they're basically doing a deck creation tool in there. So you basically can make scenes for freeform where you do your drawing and then you can say, okay, start on this one and then move the framing so it scooches across the big, huge freeform canvas onto the next one and onto the next one and onto the next one. For like presentations and stuff like that look hand drawn and really cool. I think the note, if they make notes good and it's a place where you could put handwriting and drawing and audio and all of this stuff and automatically generate summaries and things like that, I think that's really neat.
Yeah, like it's kind of crazy to think of Notes as a potential killer app, but then
It should have always been the killer app, though.
You're maybe not wrong, but that immediately raises the question for me, though: is there still as much value there if you don't have the pencil?
Well, so for me, I think about like when I was in college, when you'd have a big lecture, there'd often be like everybody would walk up and put like a tape recorder on the pedestal in front of the speaker, and they'd record the lecture, right? And I imagine walking up and setting my phone on that and setting it to record and then taking notes into the same document that's recording into on my iPad or my laptop in the carols in the seats. And like, that seems kind of compelling.
Sure.
So I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to put my phone up on the counter. That seems like a disaster when it starts ringing or something, but you know, the machine will know that I'm in class, so I shouldn't have the notifications going, and it's probably fine. The fitness stuff, the vitals thing seems neat.
Yes, that's a big one.
Of the things I'm excited about, like if they do a blood pressure watch, I would be very stoked about that. Those rumors have been going for a long time though, and it hasn't shipped yet. And then the home screen customization on the phone and iPad. I know, don't laugh, Android people. But the ability to do the shading and stuff is compelling. So that's what I'm excited about. And AirPlay receiver on the Apple Vision Pro.
Who
doesn't want that?
Of course.
I don't have a Mac, so I don't care about the iPhone screen on your Mac. Anyway, I think that's as good a place to wrap it up as any. Brad, as always, thanks for talking about this stuff with me. It's fun.
Yeah, thank you.
And if you would like to talk to people about this, a great place to do that is on the TechPod Discord, where you can be surrounded by like-minded individuals who like the same nerdy, weird, interesting stuff that you and Brad and I are all into. You can join by going to patreon.com/techpod. The show's listener supported. That means we don't take money from advertisers. We're not the money we make is the money we take directly from you, the listener. Mm-hmm. So if you would like to support the show, you can go again to patreon.com/techpod. And for $5 a month, you get access to the Discord. You get the patron exclusive episode, and you help Brad and I, live our lives, which we really appreciate.
Right. Get by.
Yeah. So as always, we like to end every episode by thanking our patrons, but we want to give an extra special thank you to our executive producer tier patrons, including Andrew Slosky, Paddle Creek Games, makers of Fractured Veil, Jordan Lippett, Bunny Fiend, Joel Krauska, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allen, James Kamek, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. Oh, and Paddle Creek Games, makers of Fractured Veil. Sorry, I missed one there. So thank you all for your support. We appreciate you. And we will see everyone next week. Bye, everybody.